love you guys.
We love you.
We love you. Thank God we met.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the fuck? You just drifted right into our life on the beach. Like we had the most epic possible first place you could meet.
Totally.
Meeting up in Malibu for the first time in human form.
Yeah, I agree. And such a beautiful sunny day for winter in Southern California.
That's why we're here. We're here to receive the brightness of people like you and the beach and everything.
Absolutely.
And it's fucking, we were resistant to it for a week and we did a podcast about that, but now we're like in the realm again. And you're helping us so much. God damn, I wish I could have been recording the last hour, but thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for your receptivity. I mean, I think that's what opens the channel to share, is really speaking to folks whose crowns and heart spaces are open to upgrades.
Ooh, we're definitely open to upgrades.
Beautifully put.
We just realized we're still in our beta mode operating system. Fucking Jesus, when are we going to do the official launch?
Well, and I love that when you first got here, you were being really real with us
Yeah.
about like some moments you've had even recently. So it's like, okay, we're all like works in progress. We're all figuring things out.
Yeah, you really set a very like vulnerable, intimate tone right off the bat that was really refreshing, just about where you were at, and that resonated so much with me. I was like, oh my, that's exactly where I'm at. So
Jeez, it was crazy.
I feel a little bit less alone in that, and
Yeah.
the complexity of relationship and three-way relationship and
Yeah.
the
Maybe
stuff that you have to burn away through it.
Yeah, that's partly why we wanted to talk to you. Is like you're the only other person we know of that's doing a three-way relationship.
Yeah.
And y'all speak to it, and y'all make it look great, and sound great. It really is quite impressive. And shout out to your other partners, Johnny and
Elisa. Yeah.
Fucking incredible people. And yeah, man, we're learning a lot from you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's funny because like we are very much in our own world where we live, and I've known about y'all for a long time, and I've been with y'all before Mayor. And so it's so interesting to receive the different energetic updates that you share on the podcast. And every time it's like so funny because Elisa and Johnny don't listen to the podcast, but I'm like, you guys, there's other people, and they be on what we be on. And they're like, okay, we're glad you have your community. And it's just like so affirming to hear your guys' story and to show vulnerably, you know, what you are experiencing. So we're doing big work, and it is a devotional practice to show up in this method of relating.
Yeah. You're kind of like with relationships the way I think about Mare with astrology. I'm like, how do you know all this stuff? Like, you're too young to, you know, but I do think with certain things, when it's resonating with your life, it's like the knowledge like a sponge. It's like just a download, like an operating system update.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. I've been doing relationships for 25 years, and you just came in here with some language, and I'm like, I can do another 25. I can do this.
Thank you. I do believe I'm highly purposed with reprogramming society to more authentic relating. And that's really like the root of, I think, what dis-ease and dysfunction we are seeing is people don't know how to be vulnerable or be authentic because of the shame, fear, guilt, and grief that limits one from their authentic expression. So I feel very inspired to support people in confronting those energies so they can transmute and alchemize, and we can show up as better partners, better lovers, better individuals in relationship, not just to society, but to the earth and how we relate to her as well.
what do you think some of the most like common limitations are with in relationship and relating?
Fear.
Yeah.
Fear of rejection, fear of not being received, fear of being too emotional or too much. That sort of thing would keep someone in a mental loop. And that's really the discord, is that when someone is resonating in the headspace and they're not feeling their energetic or somatic experience, it creates a disembodied experience, or maybe disassociation or compartmentalization, or all of these techniques that people have learned in their lifetime of trauma and experience to pull away and not actually connect through vulnerability.
Yeah, you really, like, it's really validating this, like, the path of relationship as, like, karmic yoga and that sort of thing. And I sometimes, like, have in the past fantasized about, like, switching timelines to something more traditional, because it does feel like a full-time job, like navigating relationship with more than one person, you know what I mean? And but then I always find myself like, well, it's what I love doing, and it's beautiful, and there is work to be done here, and it's like, it's the gift of getting to spend time with Mare and Sean and us learn so much and grow so much from each other, and that's, I think, what can happen is that there can be also like this doubt, like, oh my God, am I supposed to be causing pain in two people's lives, you know, like when you're not feeling great, you know, or
yeah,
like, am I supposed to, and then, but it does feel like there was something that you guys were saying yesterday about it almost like feeling like the future is going to be this more open relating and trusting and knowing that people who do the one-on-one thing, it is just as challenging, just in a different way, and that there are other challenges to traverse. It's almost like you kind of choose your own adventure with relationship or life.
it's easier to ignore some of the stuff we're talking about in a one-on-one relationship. You can go years without these issues coming up, or just you just figure out crafty ways to avoid them and avoid each other. But when you're doing something as intense as this, and you love it as much as we all love doing this, you want to spend a lot of time together. Then you realize with spending a lot of time together comes the consequences, you know, and you got to learn how to navigate those things. And somehow we're just figuring out, we're like, you know, like you just said, like we're just figuring out how to relate with each other. And I don't know, I think that speaks to our love, that like we've been so blinded by it that we haven't even fucking necessarily developed the tools to navigate it properly. And now we're trying to. And it's no coincidence that the day we've had enough is enough. Let's just fucking take some acid and go to the beach. Like, boom, like just an angel comes up to us. And normally where I'd be resistant or like, yeah, about this kind of energy, I'm like, oh, fucking, this is like medicine, you know?
Yeah, I think that's what I'm even trying to say is like, my resistance even to how openly you live your life and going in and through it. And like, I think it's you purge, or, you know, it's a purgative, and it's an understanding of the ego and the self, and realizing that I thought that I was on the other side of things, and you're still always in things, you know? I don't know.
I really can relate to what you're saying about the doubt of like questioning your reality. And that is the beauty of having a multi-partner relationship, I believe, because often there is another mirror to reflect. Like, I understand you're feeling that doubt right now, and that's extreme and that hurts. And I'm here to extend my unconditional love to you, even in those moments of like having ideation about leaving or creating an alternative timeline. And I was in that deep yesterday. Like, I've had an intense emotional experience the past few days of literally thinking about going back to In-N-Out. Like, I'm leaving y'all behind. Like, I gotta go. This is too heavy. This is too much. But I believe having intentional relationship with the intention of healing is what kind of holds the container of facing those lower vibrational frequencies of trauma that have been stored in the density of the body.
Wow.
And using embodiment practice or somatic healing or whatever other resonates to like transcend those energies creates a clear vessel to continue showing up in this style of relating. And of course, the remembrance that we are the pioneers is always helpful. Yeah. And my ego loves that one the most.
Yes, right, totally.
Our egos haven't even considered that. And like, it's like, we could feast on that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm feasting in it. And also there's like this beautiful experience that sometimes if one partner's not making you feel safe, like, or if Sean is not making me feel safe, then I look at the Mare and I'm like, oh my God, you make me feel safe and seen, you know?
Totally.
And like, there is that kind of, can be caught in some sort of way.
Very rarely will we all three be on our own tangent without somebody just holding the container for the relationship, with somebody just keeping the fire going for us all to come back to. Very rarely. But when it does happen, it's like, I want to go back to In-N-Out Burger. I never even worked there. And I don't eat meat. I want to. I'm ready to fucking go flip burgers rather than live my blissed out life.
Yeah,
you know what
totally.
I mean? It gets so how crazy, you know what I mean? And that's why I was telling you, like, it felt so good to talk to you about this, because I'm like, we don't even talk about this that much on the podcast because I feel like it could annoy people in terms of like, it's pretty awesome. Like it's pretty awesome. Like, we're talking about problems and navigating that kind of stuff, but like the highs you can touch it's worth it.
Totally.
It's worth it. Yeah. Whatever comes along with it. But there's ways to kind of, I think, just make it more manageable and sustainable. And, you know, Mare's the first person we've wanted to do that with. So it feels like we've had all this experience doing this, but we really haven't. We've had experience with having fun. We haven't had experience with, like, how do we make this last? You're not leaving our life. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to be in each other's lives.
Yeah, well, and I think like Star was talking about earlier, we're in a higher dimension of relating, and we're all at this point in our consciousness where we're prioritizing being high frequency, and so we hold ourselves to these high standards. And I think we're all going through this ascension journey interpersonally, and there's just so much pain between like the idealized version of you that your partner's holding up that you want to be, and then like not always being there. And it's just like a higher bar that we're trying to reach, and there's been a lot more.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
like those Olympic people that try to jump over that thing. It's like we've just had it really high, and we're gonna have to fail a few times.
But exactly, like when there's that moments of disharmony, like you really just have to look at yourself and like, where am I out of alignment? Where am I like
Right.
feeling fearful or scared or whatever it is? And like Mary was saying, and I put it in perspective, like, and it reminds me of my first boyfriend. Like I used to be mad at him about real things, you know what I mean? And now I'm just like mad at myself because I wasn't in a good mood, you know?
The problems get much more subtle, you know, but
Yeah,
they're
well, how
still
did she
as
say
big.
it?
They're still as visceral, you know. Yeah, how did you say it?
Oh, that was
Do
so
you remember?
funny. That was such a fucking cosmic punchline to the joke that has become our relationship sometimes.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a little subtlety that needs to be dealt with here. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like you physically hurt me or said this fucked up thing.
Yeah.
It's like
Or like
very,
we're lying to each other.
No,
like,
it's
you know,
nothing
it's-
like that. We're in full alignment.
No, it's like
we're in
I
our
feel
integrity.
you across the river being in a not so great mood, and it's really annoying me.
And I think it has to do with me. You fucker.
Yeah. It's not the 3D circumstance.
No.
It's the higher dimensional resonance of the co-creation.
Yeah.
And I believe that when we do share sexuality with people, it heightens our psychic capacity to feel them.
Yeah.
And so having awareness of our somatics, which is the energetic manifestation of feeling in the body, in the internal landscape, is highly supportive when we are operating in this very advanced way.
Yeah.
And so the people that I share relationship with are so highly sensitive that they sometimes feel a quantum energy that my density hasn't yet processed. And so I will be approached periodically, and, you know, Elisa or Johnny will say, like, I'm feeling your heart space. Like, how does your heart feel right now? And that drops me right in, you know, let me check in and see how I feel. And maybe there's grief to be released or a desire to be expressed. But it is really subtle and complex. And also there's a skill set to develop around how to process those energies without identification or involving the ego in a way that prolongs the process of alchemy.
Yeah.
Whoa. Damn.
Yeah, I love the slowness and compassion that you guys operate on with these, like, tapping in and tuning in and questioning and being open to receiving the questioning and the open to change, and always that prioritization of mood and frequency, and it's beautiful. It's
It's a structure in which you can do this.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if we don't build some structures around this, we're seeing now. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, our foundation's there. The
Yep.
foundation is fucking rock solid. It's based on attraction and, you know, our sex and everything.
Yeah, you said intimacy and intentionality.
I was just gonna bring that
for
up.
your fun and funny.
Yeah, we always say we've aligned our life with fun and funny, and then you were like, your version of that is, what was it? Intimacy and
And
intentionality.
intentionality. Yeah, it's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because part of the intimacy that I desire in those that I relate to is outside of sexuality.
Yeah.
It's the intimacy and being able to say, like, hey, can I ask you to ground your energy right now? I'm feeling sensitive to some anxiety in the room. And allowing that to be received. And
Yeah.
it's not personal.
Yeah.
I don't hate you. I love you more because you received me. But it's a tricky thing that requires a lot of deprogramming, because how people believe that intimacy equates to sexuality and that sexuality equates to intercourse, etc. And so there is a naivety I have within myself that people use these terms with the same definitions that I've created. And so it sometimes does require a little bit more explanation so we can come to collaboration in relationship.
Yeah, wow. So you create a whole new language within the relationship where you can all really understand each other on those subtle levels.
Yeah, and the foundation of our relating is focused on feeling self-compassion. So even if we do have an aspect of ego, shadow, emotionality that doesn't feel of high vibration, we switch the vibe by cultivating compassion as a felt experience, as a somatic experience. And that is feeling radical self-acceptance for what's present. So even when I'm feeling doubt, cultivating feeling compassion for myself for that aspect of self that feels doubtful, that is questioning every aspect of my reality. Feeling compassionate towards the aspect of self that is in projection, that is in victimhood, and that inherently begins the process of that aspect dissolving.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of, everyone's got to do a lot of their own work in this whole thing. So it is about just like holding space and seeing someone for wherever they're at, and knowing like that's what's cool about having two partners who want to like get to a more fun and funny place, is that when other people are holding space for that, it's like, oh, I just have to find my way back and like return to that space, and I hold the keys to that door and that pathway. And not that we don't help each other, and we want to help each other in that path, but yeah, no, it's kind of it's a funny space to find yourself in, and it's something that acid did for me, like these high psychedelic experiences where you see how connected you are, and I'm looking into Sean's eyes, wanting him to validate me in some way or give me something or make me feel safe, and then him not seeing anything there, and like kind of seeing through him back to myself.
A very clean mirror, where she can't even see me, and it's like, oh, it's me.
Like I can only see myself in him.
Me. Yeah.
And so, when you realize, when you kind of get to that state, you're like, oh, well, I kind of can enjoy many mirrors, and you're not as possessive of one mirror because it's not as like central to your identity or something like that.
Yeah, identification really stuck out to me in what you said, and not identifying with your feelings because they are so temporary. We talk about that a lot, and that is the door out, like that trusting that it's not you. And I really got spun out on so many of those loops this week about like identifying with low frequency, identifying with a bad mood, identifying with just negative qualities. It takes a lot of compassion, like you said, for yourself, and forgiveness to just say like, oh, I was moving through a state of existence that anybody and everybody can tap into. It just happens to be a frequency you can tap into on this planet, put a little bit of separation between you and that feeling.
Yeah. That's what all mindfulness is.
Yeah.
It's just building up that separation a little bit, just giving you space, so it's not spilling out into your 3D life. You're not a reactionary person, and that's what I end up. The hilarious thing is I'm screaming at Mary the other day, like, I spent my whole 30s trying to calm down, and we're not calm, and I'm like, look at this, I'm not calm. What the fuck was I trying to stay claim to? I'm like sitting here fucking I'm yelling at somebody that like they're pulling me out of the calmness that I cultivated, and it's just like I obviously didn't fucking figure out how to cultivate it and apply it in any kind of way if I'm screaming right now. Like, this is the most ironic thing to be screaming about.
It's really hard to point out to someone.
Like, God damn, am I my mom right now? This is fucking ridiculous. Let's get it together, bro. So, yeah, I think it's interesting, like what Cass said, compared, and I'm interested in to hear your backstory about this. Like the way we arrived at like throupling around was through psychedelics. Through taking these substances that made us realize we're one with everything. And, where we're putting up barriers in our life is like kind of like the joke's on us.
Oh, well, I remember the first time I did acid, like the big download I have is like, oh, we're here to play.
Yeah.
And like we get to play
Cass was
here.
like, we get to play. She's like looking at us like, whoa,
like
we get
realizing
to do whatever we want.
This is like a fun universe, and it could be fun for me, and it could be fun for Sean, and we could have fun together. And like that, I don't want to be a barrier of limitation on that energy
So all of a
force.
sudden, nothing I could do could be a threat.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that's very psychedelic. It's it's very trippy, and we just became less possessive over the thing, almost because there's just an inherent knowing that this thing's cool.
Well, I also
good.
I've cultivated enough value, or maybe I've been whatever, where I'm just like, oh, you don't want to do this with me? Like, fine. Like almost like enough, like where it's like, of course I cling and have attachment to Sean, but like I've always kind of had this like loose attachment of like, oh, well, you're lost if you don't want to be with me. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't know. Whatever.
Totally. I have reflections on multiple things. First, I just want to affirm, Sean, like, you're allowed to play out. And your rage and your anger, it's okay to express that.
A little rage play? Never heard anyone?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
I like that.
And
okay.
that's with the agreement that you'll take responsibility for however that aspect of self unfolds.
Okay.
And
I feel like
also,
I'm pretty good about that. I don't know.
Yeah, you're taking responsibility for it right now.
Okay.
yeah.
So it's
On
great.
the record. On the record.
Like, I think that energy did need to release for you to become more clear in your awareness of where you do desire to operate. And so that little
Absolutely.
pocket of anger that was desiring to be seen was so you can bounce back faster to that vibrational state of neutrality or peace.
Yeah.
Which is what you're calling calmness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the church of chill. That's the church of chill. And I'm like, I'm building out this temple in my soul. It's the spaciousness to be chill. And then, for me, a lot of times, we were talking about this before we started recording, but it's worth, I think, mentioning, like, my downfall, and I think a lot of men can fall into this category, is just like feeling like you're disappointing people you love, women, I grew up with 3 little sisters and a mom who, could not be, she can't be pleased still. Like, there's no acknowledgement of like, oh, that was cool, you're cool. Like, it's always shame, blame, anger, low vibrational stuff. Very smart woman, but like low emotional vibration stuff. And I just want to please people, and I like, that's why I have the Church of Chill that I can return to in me, because I think that when I am that guy, like, I'm attractive to people, I'm funny, I'm sexy, like, it makes me feel part of this earth. I love feeling the reflection from my beautiful women that, like, I'm doing okay. When either one of them slightly gives me the reflection that I might have done something to make them have a bad trip, it fucking destroys me. And yeah, that's definitely my Achilles heel in this thing, is I just want to feel like I'm doing right by the people that are so generous with their time and sexuality, you know.
I'd love to offer a reframe if you're open.
Please, I need it. God damn it.
I feel if this is to become integrated into your experience, then it will radically shift how you relate. But I would like to just extend innocence to you in that you haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And however they may feel in your reflection is simultaneously for them to take responsibility for, which they are doing and will continue to do in the agreements that you share.
Yeah.
But I believe it is of highest alignment for you to face and transmute whatever guilt may arise when they express an emotional experience.
And not make it their problem to make me feel otherwise.
Right.
Like, actually do it. You know?
Yeah, like taking responsibility for feeling guilt or feeling wrongdoing, but then being aware of where projection may become entangled in that experience.
Yeah.
And so I encourage you to continue on focusing feeling good, because you just touched on that a moment ago.
Yeah.
Your pleasure is contagious.
Yeah.
And so it is your only job, as it is yours and yours, to focus on feeling good. And so if you are feeling contracted because you feel concern of hurting them or triggering an emotional experience, your invitation is then presented to expand in feeling self-compassion.
Oh, wow.
Which
That's great.
inherently is what raises your vibration.
Yeah.
It brings you back to the heart space where you can neutralize any live disempowerment, because your disempowerment will be disempowering to others that you share relationship to.
Wow.
And so please remember your innocence and that you haven't done anything wrong if you've unlocked an emotional experience for the ladies to face. They are in this journey of healing and ascension alongside you, and they're not identified with those experiences either. And there is a level of advancement to then have gratitude for those experiences.
Oh, I'm right on the edge of that one. Like, where we had a horrible week, and I'm like, I'm grateful for it. I needed that. I needed that reboot. I needed to go through the worst of the worst, dark night of the soul type of moment. And get better for it. And I think what you're saying is like, you know, we all have deprogramming to do. In mine, a lot of it has to do around shame and blame from women. Because I just would get my head torn off by my mom, and there was never a like, sorry, I didn't mean that, or I was in a bad mood, or still to this day, you know what I mean? So there's this like, and if I deprogram myself, and I've been talking in our relationship a lot, but like if I deprogram myself from the shame and blame, and I just take it on, and I learn how to self-soothe a little bit better, like this thing is going to be the best fucking relationship there could ever be. Because like I'm a pretty good dude. I'm fun to be around and interesting and stuff, but like when I'm in shame and blame, we all are. And if Mare's in it, we all are. And if Cass is in it, we all are. It doesn't like...
Well, that's where it's like a beautiful thing. And like something that I don't like to be lost, and I don't think it would be lost, is like for you to care about someone else's experience and say like, I care that you're having a good time. Like, what is going on with you? Like being able to hold that space and see it, not like, oh, their problem's their problem. Like, I think that's not what we're talking about, is like a disassociation of like, oh, Cass's or Mare's or Sean's crying in the back, like, well, you know, they're going through it, they'll figure it out. Like, I think what we can do is we can like hold generous space for each other and try to affirm and help people tell a better story. And I think that's a beautiful thing that we offer, and I think your sensitivities allow you to be on the tip of one of us not doing great before we may even know, you know what I mean? And it hasn't happened a lot in this relationship. I'm very happy and very comfortable, but I can think of like, it's natural, like 2 times where like my body was reacting negatively because I don't know, maybe there was a sexual train that I moved too slowly to even hop on. And so like, I just was starting to feel like left out of the mix, not because they wanted me to be left out or because they wanted to exclude me, just because like I wasn't being assertive or energetically open. And then if I feel like a little rejected, I'll like hide even more, and it just kind of, I create this like cycle.
And there's no outlet for expression of her primal feminine rage as a response to something very primal. You're watching your man do something with another woman, and you never know when those alarm bells are going to go off. How could you? You know what I mean? What situation's going to set that off, as opposed to another one that's going to set off like your fetish? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, and it's like, it's kind of cool though, because I've had these moments and I've appreciated their love and care, and I understand why it makes Sean so upset too, because to see me upset, and then I don't want to make him upset, and I think it's all perfect how it plays out, and I think there's ways that we can like soften how it plays out by like experience, you know, like I've even been in this relationship as long as I have with Sean, like I think we can work through things more gently sometimes because we have the security of having gone through similar stuff and onto the other side. So once you start to like build that pathway towards getting to the other side enough times, you don't have to feel so scared that there is another side. You're just like, oh, there is another side to this. If we could just get there.
Yeah, totally. And if I may expand on that, like, I do think there is a vibrational resonance of concern that isn't serving. However, consideration is a higher vibrational resonance. So to approach someone in the energetic of concern doesn't feel good in the co-creation.
Right.
But when you can observe concern is arising, cultivate compassion, and then move into the higher vibrational frequency of tenderness and consideration. And so it's no longer like, I'm concerned that you're doing bad. Like, that doesn't feel good. But if it's like, I love you and I want to consider your preferences and desires and inspirations in this moment, let's discover what those things are together. Then that's a process that opens a new timeline. And particularly in navigating three-way sexuality, these things arise inherently, because beyond the concepts of the mind that we have created in this lifetime, we do have karmic, I believe, in my reality, that there is karmic DNA of our ancestors and of our lineage that become tapped into and expressed when we are to witness in new scenario. And it is through experience that we're able to process these energies that we maybe wouldn't otherwise.
I love that reframing. Yeah, because I don't even want people to be concerned about me,
right,
you know,
no
but
does.
I appreciate consideration.
Exactly.
You know, like, don't worry about me, but
fine
like,
line.
it is a fine line.
Yeah.
But it's one of those subtle energetic things like concern. It's like, hey, tell me you're better so I can feel better about this. Whereas like consideration is like a step removed.
Like, I already
from
feel
that.
better about this because I know you're going through something,
Right.
and I'm going to want to consider your feelings and be there for you. And like, even the stuff that I'm talking about, this happened like so many months ago, and they both responded, I mean, with some concern that we had to go through, but then consideration, and I just felt considered, and I just felt safer in my relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and just realizing, oh, some of the projections I was having or whatever were just fears or whatever it is. And I think we all learn how to show up better for each other, and that's the only way you can really do it, is by like, in 2-person relationships or 3-person relationships, is like kind of mapping the territory of experience, you know?
Yeah.
The mapping the territory of ascension, because I just, that's what I feel like now we're all on the same page about. And it's
Yeah.
like we can really take this to the next level. And
Yeah.
we can have dirty, down home, regular ass 3D world threesomes. Or we could have like transcendent, holy shit, we're on the mothership, like, and this is the ticket to it type of experiences. And
Yes.
I'm down for both. I'm down for, I'm down for all of the above. It's interesting navigating that though. Like we were asking you before, like how do you guys navigate sex? Like, cause when one of them's not on their period, it's just like, it's assumed. Like we're fucking having threesomes all the goddamn time, and they're great and they're amazing. And I think that we sometimes can get out of step. I wish Johnny was here so I could ask him, and I will ask him if he ever feels overwhelmed by sexuality. Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I can respond to that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Please. I
So-
was so curious about that the other day, and I'm like just looking at him. I'm like, he's fucking ripped and looks. He's not overwhelmed by sexuality. But I can because like it just goes back to that same fucking the base fear of this is that I'm letting them down, like that's not enough, that I didn't come through or whatever, you know what I mean?
I hear you.
Yeah.
I definitely have had many a conversation with Johnny about that, where
Yeah.
he has said, like, I'm feeling awareness that you have more sexual desire than I have time space allocation to provide. And that brings up, insecurity or questioning, or maybe the resonance of concern to be spoken. And I would love for him at a later now moment to share his experience.
Yeah.
But he is very passive and resides in feminine energy. And so it's really Elisa and I who are the initiators and are the activators in sexual engagement with him. And when there is not alignment for us to engage, when there is a desire, that's guidance for Elisa and I to focus on either connecting with one another or cultivating pleasure within our co-creation in a way that feels best available. And also, Johnny is very devoted to his embodiment practice of feeling pleasure within his body and the practice of semen retention. And
Oh, daddy.
yeah.
Ejaculation.
Ejaculation.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So he has achieved a very advanced state of being able to cultivate sexual energy, where we have threesomes where Elisa and I will have so many orgasms, like we have to tap out. And he is just in a very embodied meditation of cultivating his own chi. And that's through the cultivation of Tai Chi and Qigong and yoga and mindfulness and just focusing on feeling good as a full-time commitment, that he's been able to achieve that state, which is part of our inspiration to showcase our lovemaking online.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, you should drop your website right
Yeah,
now.
how can people watch you have this kind of sex?
Visit thestudiox.com.
Visit thestudiox.com to watch them have this beautiful transcendent sex.
Yeah.
All stuff
and
that
learn about it.
And learn about it. And I'm learning this is stuff we tap into.
Right.
And I have been that dude, and I'm like, what the fuck am I capable of? And it's but now just having a little structure around it makes it like Kat's saying, we're mapping a territory so we can get back to some of those places. You know what I mean? Because once you've touched those places, like the other kind of sex, the other kind of relating, seems like junk food.
Doesn't resonate anymore.
It doesn't resonate anymore. You know what I mean? Once I changed my diet, like I don't crave this stuff I used to crave anymore. It wasn't like a big thing. It was just like I just attuned with a higher thing where I'm not eating the homies anymore.
And I think he's not. I think it could sound like you're saying, "Oh, just one-on-one sex." It's not what you're not saying. One-on-one sex is junk food. You're saying
No.
less conscious sex is.
Yeah.
Three sexy bodies get together that are very attracted to each other. It's easy to, you know what I mean? What's harder is like, let's slow down. There's lots of orgasms can be had here. You know what I mean? If I can fucking slow it down. You know what I mean?
Spaciousness is so key.
Yeah.
And the ability to hold each other accountable in that. If we do witness someone slip into unconsciousness, you know, being graceful in slowing the pace, and whether that looks like placing your hand on their heart space or starting to breathe a little bit deeper so that brings other people into their breath and into their body. Or if you're feeling reactive in that moment, you know, straight up asking like, hey, I got to change the pace. Like, let's redirect energy and see how that flows. But I want to mention something. It's related to something that was said earlier around you guys speaking to your usage of psychedelics. And to me, I feel like my initial psychedelic experience was experiencing sexuality with Johnny and Elisa.
I was gonna say that same thing.
Yeah, and that's because it was heart-centered and emotionally connected and vulnerable and intimate, which I had
Uncharted
never
territory.
experienced before. Exactly. And so I had a lot of very satisfying and pleasurable, non-connective, compartmentalized sexual experiences with men. But to enter the void of their relationship that was so open-hearted and open sacral energy, I had never experienced anything like that. And because of it, I had to dissolve my entire reality as it was, as an in-and-out employee, as a bud tender, as a student.
Man.
You know, I had to literally leave the matrix and pursue entrepreneurship with their guidance because there's no going back. Once I had a taste of that, it created a whole different experience for me. So with that being said, like, I do believe there is immense power in sexual energy, and it is our creative life force that creates worlds, and we in our relationship are utilizing the cultivation of pleasure and play and fun and funny and intimacy and intention to create this alternative reality and extend it out to others to say, this isn't just us, this isn't just me, this is for you too. But it requires a certain amount of gumption to want that, to make that happen.
But look, we can handle the gumption. You know what I mean? It doesn't take many people having the gumption before. Like, we had a friend on this trip be like, hey, my wife's like down to do this kind of stuff. Like, but I doubt we'll ever be able to. I was like, don't have that attitude. I think it's the opposite. You and your wife want to do this. Like, I think it's pretty easy. Like, you have that intention, just hold that intention, hold that in mind. And your frequency will raise to that, to where you'll attract somebody that would be appropriate for it. You know, that's what happened to us. You know, it's very simple.
Psychedelics kind of like make you tune into like how intense sex is, or at least we've had some like doing ayahuasca and like refraining from sex. Like, then when we went back and did it, I'm like, oh shit, like this is a big engagement. This is a big agreement.
Doing this all the time.
So it's interesting.
Like, what the fuck?
For people who are like publicly doing like a 3-person relationship to, in some ways, take sex like way more seriously than people who are like, no shame or hate or anything, but like for people who are dating, like, because it's like we engaged in this way, and now we're like very much kind of also similar to psychedelics, where you trip with someone and you're like, oh my God, you're my brother, you're my sister, like I see you in a new way, and like it extends out. But especially with people you tripped with, and then when you sleep with someone, you're like, oh, like there's this brother's keeper energy that kind of happens, you know? That's really special and beautiful. But it also makes you not want to throw it around.
Well, you're creating karma. It really does feel like one of the few things we can do to kind of just like create real ripples of karma in this fucking place, like to where a new life could get added to the mix if you're not careful.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So you're creating a lot of karma. You're exchanging karma with somebody, and
well, and I think it creates patterns of relation and how we relate to each other, because there's just a lot of unpresent sex. Sounds like you guys have very present sex because of the pace that you have it at. And I think disassociation and dispresence with each other and relating creates that pattern of belief that that's how relation plays out, if that makes sense. So it like creates these patterns of disassociation in people. And I think that's
where the lack of intimacy that we notice just in it as a generalization in younger people, like there's been such a lack of intimacy that it's almost not even a desire of people anymore.
Sure.
You know, you're finding that kind of satisfaction in other places, but
Well,
they can't be replaced.
And it's so
me
intense,
that.
I think, these days, with us being so psychically connected, you know, and being in higher frequency and higher dimensions, and like psychedelics make sex more intense, but I think sex is just more intense right now too in the human consciousness. You know, I think relating is more intense because we're all more connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've said that a lot, and I've said that that's why we have this moment, I think, of this pendulum swing of all feeling like we need to disassociate a little bit.
Yeah. And we're just like riding the crest of something that we were saying the other day. I was kind of joking because I was on acid and really high. I was like, this is the future, though.
Yeah, it is.
So many more people will be doing this if it's well represented.
I agree.
And honestly represented. Because there's, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like
Well, it's also
anything,
like the situation is the boss, and right now
The situation is
we aren't in a good place to have kids. A lot of people. We need to do more communal living so we can afford houses or space. We need to share responsibilities. We need to have each other's backs in uncertain times. We're incredibly disconnected, so we have to find ways of connecting more through relationship or community.
So let's 3 people get together and create a karmic predicament that only us 3 can get out of.
Well, and think about like with the pandemic, like that's what's so cool about like, oh, you're supposed to isolate, and that's like hanging out, meeting Mare, and just being like, let's isolate together. A lot of this, it just was like, oh, well, duh, like this is like not a sad thing. This is like a vibe. We got like our own little house vibe going, you know?
Yeah. As humans, we desire to feel safety and connected to tribe.
Yeah.
And so I believe we are returning to our tribal nature. And what that looks like is dissolving the nuclear family and the home ownership and the car ownership as we once knew it.
Yeah.
And I do believe we are the future, and we are the pioneers of a social revolution that's based in curating sex-positive, intentional community. And it's in alignment with everything you just described. And my partner, Johnny, has drafted business models of everything you just described because we do desire to create this as more widespread and more available. However, in contrast to what you shared, Sean, about suggesting to your friend that it's easy,
Yeah.
I don't yet think that that is available because of the karmic entanglements that are within people's vessels.
Yeah.
And I feel very similarly that, like, it is available to anyone that can resonate, but there is a devotion to the practice of healing and confronting unserving energies that is required to actually ascend.
Yes.
And for me, ascension is really about fear, shame, guilt, and grief, and getting to know those energetics within my system and expanding the skill set to move those energies so I can become a more clear vessel for the word of God, which inherently expands sensation and pleasure in sexuality.
Yeah.
So when we can reframe that emotional experience to remember it's actually supporting me in expanding in pleasure.
Wow. It feels like the rediscovery of something that has just culturally been slowly siphoned away.
Absolutely.
You know? It's reclaiming something that's very natural to us, actually. Everything we're all talking about, everything we're doing is very natural to us. What's unnatural to us is the way we're currently living.
Yeah, the possessiveness, the fear mentalities, the lack mentalities, you know, like how we perpetuate those cycles of lack by trying to...
The paranoia, the cultural paranoia, and how it plays out in individuals and how it isolates us more. And, you know, all this stuff we're talking about is the antidote. And you don't have to throuple around, but who doesn't want to feel closer to the people that they're having sex with? Who doesn't want sex to be better, you know? This is stuff like we've meant to feel, we've been made to feel very shameful around, and it's on purpose. Well, our happiness is slowly being siphoned away because it makes us better consumers. Because if it's not an inside job, it has to be an outside job, and there's plenty of snake oil salesmen waiting there to do the stuff that we're all doing. We could just tap into for free by being fucking high vibe and taking our friends there and taking our partners there and our sexuality there. It's really cool. I do think it's really cool. Like, you've helped us reframe this whole thing where, like, it almost feels like it can be important. Like it is important, you know?
Yeah, it's our dharma.
Yeah.
And I do think that it doesn't need to look like sharing sexuality with multiple people. Like
Yeah.
we're not like pushing throuple poly life on anyone.
Yeah.
It's about resonating with open energy centers
Mm-hmm.
because society has generated so much shame that's caused people to block their sacral center, the energy center of sexuality and creative power, that it's so common people couple and then close. They close their hearts, they close all of their energy centers. So what we describe when we talk about open relating, it's about relating with open chakras. And that's through the transcendence of lower vibrational frequencies that distort us from actually feeling that. And it manifests in a whole spectrum of sharing closeness and intimacy. And that can be platonic and through friends and through sisters and brothers, and doesn't need to be a highly sexualized or highly personalized relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even like I kind of stumbled into it, but I'm like addicted to like finding out who I am. And then that's also through finding out who I'm not. Okay, I'm not just Sean's girlfriend. Like I'm more than that, you know what I mean? Like I'm not just that's not the defining characteristic of who I am. I mean, it is technically, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? I don't mean to like push you away.
No,
by
it's
saying
like the
this.
same when I say like I'm not a filmmaker. You know what I mean? I make films sometimes, and that's okay. But I'm not looking to identify with that because it's going to create a whole world.
Or yeah,
of
like the
attachments.
judgments of like the attachment of like, oh, am I making a film right now?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if I'm not making a film right now, am I a filmmaker? And
Yeah, getting all your self-worth attached to
Yeah.
the labels that you've
Yeah.
thrust on yourself.
Yeah.
yeah. Loose living.
How long have we been doing this? Can you see?
45 minutes.
Oh shit!
Let me just
Can
make
we
sure
keep
the
going for a
framing
little bit?
looks
You good?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, cool. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
This is fucking awesome, y'all. Come on, give it up for us. 45 minutes of gold.
Yeah, you go, because then I'm going to go P2, Cass.
Wow. Yeah, you've really you're dropping some knowledge on us.
Thank you.
So you went from In-N-Out Burger to you quit your job and moved in with your current partners
Yeah.
and started. Was that your first time dabbling with online, like you know, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was some timelines in between the In-N-Out timeline and me moving in with them. And
Yeah.
then one of those things being like our first business, which was the Yoga Collective. And I feel like that is a big thing that I advocate for people who are interested in complex alternative relating, is to have an embodiment practice because it does enhance sexuality when we are able to feel ourselves and to feel our breath and how it circulates through our being. So yoga is really the gateway to my alternative relationship. But once my reality became so shattered by the love that I received as they opened to me, there was no way that I could possibly go back to what was previously. And so my partner Elisa had already done some erotic modeling and some nude modeling, and Johnny has background as an entrepreneur and businessman, and he is literally like he's an anarchist in the sense that he wouldn't use that word to describe himself, but he was once a powerful narcissist, businessman, Christian, married, kids, homes, boat, horses.
What?
And literally had a spiritual awakening and decided to leave all of that to
we got to talk to him.
live in his van and be a
Wow.
minimalist and focus on feeling good through yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong. So anyways, I'm speaking this because when I met him, he presented the opportunity to extend freedom to me via leaving my jobs and generating abundance through my erotic expression, which was not his idea, it was Elisa's, but he created the grounding and the platform for us to be able to do that. So through his mentorship and his guidance, I've become a very empowered businesswoman alongside my partners, both Elisa and Sky. And so we have a business where we support others in discovering the operating system of open relating, whether that be polyamory or sharing intimacy and sexuality with others, or just desiring to be in a more monogamous presenting relationship, but still resonate in open energy. We are sexual healers to an extent, and we share the tantric philosophy to those who resonate, which is the idea that there is no wrongdoing when we can release the binary of good versus evil and transcend those lower distorted energies of fear, shame, guilt, and grief. That is the gateway to full ascension. So we've created the business, the Studio X, to provide people this information and also showcase our eroticism uncensored. Because we believe that young people are disconnected from intimacy because their education on sexual relating is through porn. And porn is the vibration of fear, shame, guilt, and grief. Like the people that are doing that are not resonating in authentic relationship. And so when young people watch that, it psychically trains their nervous system to feel arousal via another's wrecked nervous system. And so they believe that they must recreate that to feel sexual chemistry. So it's our inspiration to produce uncensored sexual content from the vibration of heart-centered lovemaking. So people can feel that viscerally.
Wow.
And it's a different
That's a
energetic
gift.
experience.
That's a gift.
Thank you.
Hard thing to put a price on too. It's like a hard thing to say, like that's invaluable.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And also like that's why I was telling you guys like I don't make a lot of money off of the erotic content, and the conversation we were having earlier about me transcending the idea that someone deserves or doesn't to see my pleasure or to see my nudity. It's like I want all people to feel good and all people to feel pleasure, and I don't want to make that not available because of the dollar amount that I'm monetizing it at.
Yeah.
So I'm always available to offer like discounts to anyone who feels the courage to, you know, express that they're not in the financial position to invest. But if I may continue a little bit more.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Something that I feel also is really cool about what we're doing is that like porn stars are very untouchable. Like they're in their world of performing. And for us, like we are authentic beings and we are bringing a peer-to-peer engagement to those who desire to connect with us, which is why we offer intimacy and relationship coaching and share empathic communication and tantric philosophy and embodiment practice as tools for people to become first better individuals with a deeper and more expansive relationship to self that then is contagious to those that they relate to.
Yeah.
So
that's how you change the world. You, I mean, you really are changing the world by being so intentional about changing yourself.
Yeah. And the tantric philosophy suggests that all relationships in our life are built upon the foundation we have with ourselves. And so if someone is to want deeper intimacy, I always reflect, you know, where can you expand and more intimacy with your own self first?
We've been talking about this stuff in a more crude way.
Sure.
And, you know, like I'm saying, yelling about how I used to become, like yelling about how, like, you know, we need to love ourselves. Like, you know, clearly when me and Mary are not in a good place, we're not extending love to ourselves, you know, and how could we possibly give it to anyone else if we don't have it for ourselves? And it's hard. It's hard because, like, I know we're both also the type of people, like, yeah, we know forgiveness is important, but the last thing we'll do is extend it to ourselves. And it's like, it's all a moot point. If it really is, it's like, because if that's not done and done properly, like you're not going to be able to extend that to other people. They're not going to feel it. So there's going to be an intensity about your being. And, man, that's the stuff in my life that's broken my heart the most is like, you were talking about this today, but like I can relate is when I find out like someone was scared of me or intimidated by me or didn't act like themselves around me because they thought I might respond in some way that I probably would have, you know, and you know, it's the worst when they're actually onto something, you know, it's one thing when it's just like, oh, you're fucking paranoid and you're insecure or whatever. But it's another thing when it's like, I do give off that vibe, man. That is dead programming that was there to protect a heart that has evolved a lot and can handle things. And I don't want to be that way anymore. And, you know, this is like going back to you, like, you know, having this moment this week of like, I want to be soft. I want to be, you know, I've been there and I am there and I want to be that way. And, you know, it's the worst when it feels like I can't be that way with you guys. And I'm like, you know, because I'm not being that way to myself. I'm not being soft to myself. I'm beating myself up over our business fucking going away for a couple years because of this goddamn quarantine and not being able to make films and questioning just all these deep things about who I am as an artist and like taking it out on you. And I'm like, I haven't offered myself compassion or forgiveness or innocence, which is going to be my new one. You know, like, I'm innocent. It wasn't me. Remember Shaggy or whatever? Hell yeah.
That's a good one, Sean.
It wasn't me. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but it sounds right. She's a well of information. Let's ask her questions. Like, we have to do this. Like,
I know. I'm rushing off to go pee, but we should ask her
go pee.
questions.
Go pee. Yeah. But we were man, you really nailed it on the why. Oh, here's one, because it's in your frequently asked questions. Because now we're at the point where someone's listening to this and they're like, this all sounds fine and dandy, but this is a sex cult. What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Have we been accused of that?
I haven't heard that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Not yet. And we must not be doing it right.
Yeah, the question of sex cult, you know, it does make me laugh. And when I do receive that one, I just ask people in a very grounded frequency, you know, what is a cult in your reality? And many people can't answer.
Yeah, they don't even know what that means.
Yeah, so if someone is to answer, you know, that may be true for me. If their definition of cult is a group of people who pursue healing through the cultivation of sexual energy, that resonates and that is true for me.
Yeah.
But if their cult concept is that of manipulation or disempowerment, that is not what we are representing.
Yeah.
So I am in the business and in the embodiment of challenging people's realities consistently. And there is a development of inquiry to extend out to others that's not with the subtle energy of condemnation or blame or shame, but grounded in loving.
Yeah.
You know? Can you tell me more about why my lifestyle is so triggering to you? I'm here to hold space for that and love you through it.
That's hard to do without you getting triggered.
In my mind.
Because there is something inherently condescending about throwing a label on somebody and making them dig their way out of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Especially a woman. It's basically saying, like, there's no way, you must be being manipulated.
Right.
Because why does any man deserve this love, this?
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
I felt that from people.
Yeah.
You know, like, just like an inherent, like, jury's still out on you, bro. Just because I'm doing this. It's like, fuck off, governor.
You're innocent.
Yeah, I'm innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a concern when people in anything, like with thinking about cults, is like want to give their power away. And I think that's sometimes why people are attracted to cults or attractive to cult of personalities, is because someone sees maybe themselves as powerful and likes other people seeing themselves as powerful, and then it's like this egoic thing that can self-corrupt in some ways. And that's where it's like a big responsibility of someone in a position of power to do work to consider those aspects, but also trusting that people are empowered to make their own decisions and holding that reflection for them, even if they can't hold it for themselves.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like the question of censorship. Like, there's always belief systems that are gonna be out there to attune to. And we have to empower people personally to be more decisive and discriminating about what they want to subscribe to for their belief systems, you know?
Yeah. That's what I value about transparency, because for myself and the people that I relate to and have created business with, is like there's nothing that we won't address in transparency. So we're fully available if someone sees a shadow or sees a distortion that they would like to support us in seeing ourselves. We would love to go on that journey of discovery with the courageous one who can inquire and hold space for that conversation. Like, that is the path of ascension that we are devoted to, is bringing all things to light. And so if there is any manipulation or disempowerment present, like, we would like to be shown where that is. Because we don't want to be disempowered in ourselves, and we don't want the people around us to be disempowered.
Right.
Power versus force. That's been coming up a lot recently this year.
Yep. Can you pass me that?
And I was kind of asking you that too when you came in, and you were talking about having some lack mentality right now that was turning into some fear projections. And it's such a coming of age process to realize what empowers you personally, you know, to be able to show up to relationship with the love and compassion and excitement you have with yourself that you want to extend to other people. And, you know, the embodiment practices that you guys talk about are obviously probably some of the biggest key things for that.
Totally.
Yeah, and why getting in your body is so vital for even showing up in relationship, because, you know, you need to feel that sort of natural power. And we have such like a negative connotation even with the word power, I think, a lot of us, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Scared to claim it, scared to lean into it. Yeah.
Well, we live in a culture that wants you disempowered.
Yeah.
I could go on for 9 podcasts about why.
Or you see power like as a corrupting force. You can't
Yeah.
disentangle how you
Right.
see people in power take advantage of their
Right.
power, or almost
Right.
almost like where it feels beyond their control. Like money is power. People
Right.
with money maybe don't operate in ways that you feel like, you know, is the proper use of power, or and then you doubt that within yourself, and it's there's a lot to untangle if you don't want to be fearful of things, and especially and also changing the game of what power is, like power not being force, power being being in a moment of conflict and being able to hold consideration, acceptance, and those sort of qualities, versus like force, shame, blame, change, fix, can allow you to be in more seated in your power of, because a power isn't like the one that's screaming or the one that's doing things, because that's a scared person. And that's, I think, where we get to is this place of understanding, like, oh, if someone's screaming, it's the little kid in them that's like asking for help or asking for attention or whatever it is. Like, that's not power. That's a clinging to the idea of power. But the true power is like in a spacious awareness and an accepting of life as it is, so that you can attune yourself to create harmony in your environment, you know?
Yeah, there's like an innate sovereignty attached to power. You know, like the just not needing things from other people or outside of the world to be a certain way. It's kind of sometimes how I define power.
Yeah, and I feel like, and we've talked about this before, and it's a little trippy, but like you can send power back to your inner child that's really hurt. You can send, you know, power back to that wounded person and watch it fucking ripple up into this timeline. Because sometimes if you can send power and forgiveness back to that little kid, you don't need to defend it so sharply all the time. And that's all it is. Like, if I'm screaming, it's like, I'm just defending the little kid in me that never was told, like, oh, sorry about that. You know what I mean? It's like I'm making sure, you know, and that's what I want to fight for out in the world. So it's not a bad thing to be aware of these qualities. But I think to empower, you know, that lost and lonely, confused little child, and it resides in all of us, is like it's an important thing to do, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it resonates up here, you know, in these moments. And people can feel that. We were in a great place yesterday by the time people started coming over. And by the time they were leaving, they said, that's the best night we've had all year. People who are like, you know, real rock and rollers, who are out there, like, have access to, you know, the kingdom of pleasure. And they're over here just dancing with us. And, you know, like you're saying, it doesn't need to be sexual, but we took that about as far as you could take it non-sexually. We were just vibing, and it wasn't because there was no drugs or anything. It was just like vibing out good music, just people that want to be together and hold space for each other.
Yeah, it's a portal of authentic relating that feels very different. Like, whatever those people experience in their other realms is not authentic, where people are not being transparent and are being distorted by substances that aren't serving. But then they enter the portal with you guys, and it's timelessness and it's pleasure and it's heart-centered connection, and that's really refreshing. And for a lot of people, they don't experience that as regularly as we do.
Yeah, and I've talked shit about it for years, but now it's happening. It's like it's when you turn the corner and you're not making art, you are the art. And you're not taking drugs, you are the drugs. Like, you've worked in collaboration with these things to let them show you, because we were learning this from David Hawkins, that they're not actually bringing you to those higher states that you might think. You might think that the Molly is bringing you up to the highest states. It's actually not. It's just blocking out the lowest ones. You're want to be there. You're natural. That's where we want to reside. We're going towards Christ consciousness. We have all these other things holding us down. So a lot of the psychedelics are just they're very effective at cutting out those lower frequency emotions. So you can just bask in the glory of love. And but the substances themselves are not the thing. And we're in such a culture that we want to externalize and otherize and give credit to where it's not really due, you know. I'm grateful for Molly, and I'm grateful that we've charged that substance up to where people think it's doing something for them, but they're doing something for them. So, you know, and that can be applied to a lot of things. And it starts to, show you the matrix for what it is, you know?
Yeah, the insourcing, the process of insourcing. And it really is the process of understanding all the ways in which you give away power in different ways, and relating in different, you know, dynamics in your life. And it's very complex to unpack.
Yeah.
I believe in every moment there's the opportunity for empowerment or victimhood.
Definitely.
And that's 3D versus 5D relating.
Yeah.
So it's like when you are residing in that victim-y place, remembering again, okay, I can reframe this for my empowerment. What would that look like in this moment? I don't even need to do it, but can I create an idea as to what that would be?
Wow. So it's that simple. It's just like a
When
flow
you
chart.
remember.
Yeah.
You'll forget.
Not easy to remember.
You'll remember again.
Yeah.
It's not even easy to be reminded. You know, you're seeming like a victim. Oh,
I mean, we don't even have to do that. We'll just be like, yo, 5D, fuck 3D right now. Come on. Like, we could soften the language a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, just because you said it a moment ago, Christ consciousness to me is the vibrational resonance of feeling compassion.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
And so
exactly.
I used to jokingly say, like, what would JC do right now? You know?
Yeah.
He feel compassionate, not just towards those that he's around, but towards himself. And so to remember that that is available for you, which is what the medicines do teach, is they show you the more emphasized vibrational frequencies of pleasure to remind you that that is available to be accessed in your daily life.
Yeah.
And I feel at a point in my embodiment and where I reside in resonance that, like, taking some MDMA doesn't actually support my vibe any longer. Like, I am in a higher vibration without that medicine at this time. And it's a really interesting space to be because it used to be such contrast to where I once was.
That's really astute, and I'm glad you said that. I feel like Cass is a good example of that lately. You know what I mean? It's like we've had a lot of fun on MDMA, but then there's been some times where it's just like, why did I do that? You know what I mean? And a hard time integrating, a hard time, you know.
I still have a really high time, but it is like I do have it's like a week of like kind of just having a hard time where I'm just like, oh, I feel good. Like, I think it's valuable, and I just don't think it's something that I would want. I take it. I kind of like that I have the low week after it because it kind of just makes me create such a special, sacred ceremony around something, because I have to not only prepare myself before it, but also prepare myself for integrating the experience. And it's not something that I want to casually do, and I have to be incredibly gentle with myself, you know, after that sort of thing.
I think these are all things we can appreciate the rest of our lives, but you might outgrow them for good amounts of time, and I think that's okay. I think that's part of the journey with having a psychedelic life, is that you don't always need the psychedelics, because, like I just said, like, you become them. You know, I've had enough experience with acid and where it takes me now, and breathed into it for enough hours of my life that, like, I don't necessarily need the acid. Like the other day when we were like, should we take acid or mushrooms? We just needed a restart type of trip, and like Mare's like, I'm already on acid. Like, when we haven't taken it in months. Like, Mare was already in that frequency. It's like we needed actually the grounding, the mushroom to just ground us down, and we took it, and it helped a lot because it just shouts out like, you're okay.
Oh yeah, and then I started to have theories too about, like, when I first started doing mushrooms, it felt like I was less sensitive to the mushroom. Like, it took more mushroom to get me high. And I used to be able to take, like, really, like, a lot of epic doses of mushrooms when I was younger.
Yeah.
And now I take barely anything, and I trip so hard. It's like I've become so sensitive to them. And our friend Johnny was telling us an interesting story about him taking a bunch of mushrooms, but going through, like, a breakup, a very traumatic experience, and not tripping at all.
Yeah.
Like kept basically taking a hero's dose of not having any visuals and not really
Yeah.
having experience because he was still just like holding down this really low frequency,
Yeah.
you know, and like wasn't taken on this journey. And it really got me starting to believe like, oh, my consciousness is more aligned with the mushroom now.
Yes.
And so it just takes so much less of an interaction between the two of us to get to a similar place and to get to like a, you know, an understanding and a connection again.
It also, that story highlights what we were just saying about power. It's like, you know, we think that these mushrooms are powerful, and it's like the human ego is more powerful than the mushrooms.
Yeah.
You can cancel out a mushroom trip
Yeah.
with your thoughts.
Yeah.
For sure. So
Yeah.
doesn't that show you that the power was yours all along?
Yeah.
You know, that
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't in these mushrooms. It was you all along.
Yeah.
If you can tell such a powerful fucking negative story that it cancels out the effects of an eighth of mushrooms,
Yeah.
you can probably tell such a positive story that it cancels out the effect of capitalism. And, you know, you start to really fly high, and like, it sounds like you guys are touching some rare air, you know, and, yeah, it's a beautiful thing to bear witness to and be around. And, you know, people are drugs, and we can become drugs. And like, you guys are showing up the other day. I could feel it. It wasn't that interesting. Like, it was just us three on the beach, and then one by one, our friends started to show up, and you could feel like what each drug that they were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, here comes Jesse. He's like ketamine to
Yeah.
me. He makes me
Yeah.
just feel fucking wild and
Yeah.
crazy. And then
Yeah.
here's a little Miss Molly.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm in love. All right. You know, and then some people are acid, and some people are weed, and some people are coke, and you're just fucking cracked out when they're around. And like, so, you know, we're doing that to each other, whether we like it or not. And
Yeah.
people like us have become very sensitive to it. So if I've become sensitive to it with other people, I don't want to become just a victim. I want to become a contributor of,
Yeah.
I want to be acid, the thing that just fucking cuts through it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Doesn't matter what else is going on. Yeah, it just cuts through it all, right up to Christ consciousness,
Yeah.
just from my presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
You're
get that
Jesus
going.
to me.
Oh, thanks. You're still Jesus to me.
You're still Jesus to me.
We're all Jesus. You're still Jesus to me.
I know, though. That's why it's easy to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck. All right. Well, let's fucking wrap it up. I could do this all day and all night. Let's do this like many more times.
For sure.
If we had more mics, I would love to get the whole 6 of us on here.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, we will manifest more mics.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
figure out how to do that. Like, physically figure out how to do that, and do that one of these days, and get you guys out to New York, and hopefully we can visit you out here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fun. You're incredible. Is there anything you want to promote or just
Plug
like,
the website again because I'm a little
Yeah.
nervous about linking it because of
Totally. Yeah,
YouTube
yeah.
and stuff
People
like that.
can visit thestudiox.com. We're also on Instagram. Mine is Starlitt_X. And yeah, would love to stay connected with you all. If anyone resonates with the message, we're always looking for collaborators and creatives who are interested in building a social revolution. So if you're someone who resonates, please hit me up. Let's connect and build.
beautiful.
fire podcasts? You're
Thank you. Thank you
Golden
guys for
God.
having me.
Thank you,
It's
Star.
been great.
Thank you so
peace,
Much
love, and
love.
magic.
Woo!